Welcome to Talking Small Press
Talking
Comics.
small communists.
Small Communist Press Comics. Today is a special video because we're interviewing Larry Johnson, one of the all-time greats in small press as far as I'm concerned. So Steve and I have come up with a number of questions for Larry, and we're going to make him answer them. So
yeah, and I got a copy. I'll just say I have a copy here.
Look at that.
I think this was your very first small press comic, your very first fanzine?
Yes.
It was the first one that was ever published? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a
and how long ago was condition.
That? It says 1973.
Yep.
73.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you'll notice, if you look at, like, for instance, well, any page here, any page of Larry's artwork.
Oh yeah.
He already had that style.
Yeah.
That fluid style.
Yeah.
He already had that intact. This one was very much wordy. He doesn't put as many words into his comics as he did back in those days. But it was, even then, I mean, this stuff is totally, it holds up well over the years. This is great stuff.
Well, my big thing was Tales of Fantasy. And I was a subscriber. Right. I don't know if you remember that or not, Larry.
Oh, okay.
And how many years did you do Tales of Fantasy?
I started in January of '88.
Oh my gosh.
It went until the end of 2015, and that's 71 issues.
Oh my God.
And in fact, this year I just put out number 72, a brand new Tales of Fantasy full color, full size comic book. So it's a whole new era for Tales of Fantasy. Oh, Bugalo.
This one, or is it a different one that you're talking
about? It's a new one.
Oh, okay.
I got Tales of Fantasy. This is number 18.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I thought maybe it was this one, but okay.
No.
Oh, this has Madame Bugalo on the cover.
Yeah. There we go.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I have to get that.
I've got to do a reprint soon. I'm almost out of these.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering.
Water. Hang on.
He's gone again.
I'm so prepared. I'm so prepared, you know.
I'll grab my water here. Yeah, me too. I was thinking the same thing.
When you're talking a lot, you know, this is what happens. You have these meetings and they blah, blah, blah.
We're just getting started, so yeah.
Well, how did you come up with the character Madame Bugalo?
Bugalo. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's see.
Well, this is, I'll just show everybody, this is Madame Bugalo on the cover of this one.
Hang on a second.
Okay.
It's nice.
I found the book.
Ooh.
This is a book.
Okay.
Jean-Paul Clarbet, The Gypsies, a French author from 1960, wrote all about the gypsies in here. And look at this lady in here.
There she is. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's this magic lady, the pure day, the wise old woman. But Bugalo, I would say, what I wanted to talk about was basically you come with an earlier incarnation of this character, and they sort of evolve into another character. So I had a character named Madame Pula when I was a kid, a younger teenager, and she was a gypsy fortune teller type guy. She's kind of a faker, and she appeared in actually one of the Rena stories. Now Rena was like a Doctor Strange ripoff kind of gal. Rena, she was in Mysterious Adventures in 1973 when I was self-publishing. And so she appeared there. In fact, that adventure was printed back in the 80s by Jim Main and Fizit, I think, at one time. The second Rena, it's the same. So in 1987, I was trying to do a new Rena story. I said, okay, she's okay. But somehow this old lady idea came along, Bugalo, and her son Gumar.
Yeah, Gumar.
Gumar, okay.
Obedient, yes, mother, kind of guy. And so she came along, and you know, I'm kind of free ranging in my talk here because one part of my art influences another part, or something that I'm doing in a whole other form. And her very first story was called The Magic Scarf. She had a little boutique and a scarf, and this lady came along, and the scarf wrapped around her face and made her fly off, and she had to have an affair with Gumar and all this stuff. And but that became that was from a theme we did years ago called Scarf Person, where a scarf had gone all around a person's head, and they had some kind of magic things happening. And that as a further thing, I'm rambling a bit, but
No.
that was in a Zooey story, The Land of the Scarves, which was the last issue of Zooey, which became the first issue of Tales of Fantasy. And this was a scarf peddler who actually brought these scarves to the city of Arlong, and it wrapped around people's heads and let them fly off to this other city where he used them as slaves and all. So the scarf, I could go on and on about Scarf Person, because years ago, and let me just give another little area, because ages ago in my 20s, we had a character named Scarf Person, because I lived in a house, apartment house with a lot of young 20s, and like every night is like a party, back then.
Yeah.
And my friend Diana brought some scarves by one night, and there's like these silk, colorful scarves. And we put it, and said, what can we do? I put one all over my head and tied it, and said, oh, Scarf Person. So we'd have our parties, and everybody's getting high and whatnot. Well, back in the day.
Yeah, those were the days.
So all of a sudden, Scarf Person would appear and never say a word and move around and all, and then leave. And say, wow, this character's interesting. So suddenly, Scarf Person became, I did a comic book, a wordless comic book with this character, and poetry. And Brian made a film with me starring as this character.
Really?
And we made a second film in 1980 called Exclusion. And my boyfriend at the time, what was his name? Jim. Oh, Jim, I know. We played character X, character Y. I can't remember which one I played. But I had the scarf around my head for almost all the film. I'm doing a self-portrait with the Scarf Person with a painting. And it's a great film.
You should re-release that film.
Was the film 8mm? Or how did you do
Super 8.
Super 8.
News.
Yeah.
Brian recently restored this film, and it's on YouTube.
You're kidding.
Exclusion. His channel, Brian Lee, Lee. You look him up, and it's an 18-minute film, and I think it holds up really well.
I'm going to look that up for sure.
It's black and white, and it's like, if you think about Salvador Dali and that sort of thing going on, that's the kind of thing. Exclusion.
Larry, how do you spell Brian? So we can look this up. B-R-I-A-N?
B-R-I-A-N.
Got it. Okay, we'll look that up.
He restored it, and we had a Ravel soundtrack. Because one night, years ago, he had the film together, and he says, we're trying to find proper music. I brought over this Ravel record of this Boat on the Ocean and all. And somehow, the whole rhythm of this great romantic music went so well with everything in the film that it I can't even describe it. It was perfectly descriptive for the whole film. So it's 18 minutes, and he just restored it, and it's a really, I think
see that.
I'm kind of biased, but I think
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I got to see that.
It's kind of nostalgic looking at it, but it's kind of nice to see, and I think people can get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
But that character, as I say, was in other forms of art, and then went into my comics. Well, oh my God.
Phone.
Oh, you disappeared. Can you hear us?
Oh dear, I've got low battery. Hang on a second.
Oh,
okay.
Can you plug it in?
Oh no, this uses up a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, see if you can plug it in there.
Yeah, if you could plug it in.
Let's see if I can
while we're waiting here, I wanted to say something about Madame Bugalo. It's his story over the years. It's kind of hard to tell which side she's on sometimes, because I mean she loves her son Gumar, but Gumar is cursed and becomes a demon-like character called Poroscoro at times. Yeah. And but it's hard to kind of tell where she's in her own world of magic and mysticism and stuff. And it's really an interesting character.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I have decided that she's on the side of the good guys. But
we'll ask Larry that. We'll see here.
Seems to wander off into black magic at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So here we are. Yeah, I'm bringing along jump. I had to move over here because of the
cord.
My cord, my plug-in is here. Let me get myself together. Hang on a second. It's going to take me a minute.
We're patient. We've been through it all with this show.
Oh yeah.
I like this on the fly stuff here. It's great.
Yeah.
We're so professional.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have a proper.
That's us. Professional all the way.
I don't have a proper.
Well, that looks good. Looks good, Larry.
Okay.
There we go.
Larry, did you hear what I was?
Yes.
Did you hear what I was saying about Madame Bugalo?
Bugalo, yes.
You heard what I was,
You
what I
talked
was
about
saying?
her son Gumar, huh?
Right, and sometimes it's hard to tell which side she's on, because she ventures into black magic, and her own son is a demon at times.
Horoscuro.
Ultimately, it seems that she loves her son Gumar. There's no doubt about that. But she's like almost dabbled too much in the dark side.
Yes.
That's
She has a curse. She has a curse where she has to bring demons into the world on occasion, and all. And she uses her own son to channel this terrible demon, Horoscuro.
Yeah.
Here's some pictures of him. He's
him.
got 8 dog and cat heads on his back and a snake for a tail, and any bites from them give people cholera and plague. So, in fact, my brand new story I'm working on right now, he's missing, and he ends up in a factory, and they're working on these biological agents in canisters. And I wrote this in 1997.
Oh, it's kind of relevant.
Well, you know, well, I read my script, and I says, I just have to update this a little bit, because she deals with this detective to try and find him, Detective Kowalski. And they'd already met in my series, but they were brand new. And I said, just like about 80% of it's the same. And I can't believe I wrote this like 24 years ago. And I says, oh, like there's a plague happening on the world.
Yeah.
Wow. Kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And here's a little picture of Horoscuro, if you can see him.
Yeah. Wow.
Watercolor?
With the cats on his back.
That is acrylic on cardboard.
Ooh.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah. I know you do a lot of painting.
Yeah, it looks great.
And this was oil pastel.
Oh, okay.
That one.
Wow.
So I did a few things with this guy, just to let you know. But yeah, she's a lot of fun. I think Bugalo is interesting because she's like complex, and she talks about the old country a lot. You know, that first issue, she read about a romance she was having with this man from years ago, and this fellow made of the wind showed up.
But she must be about 150 years old or something, right?
Like 700 or 800 years, maybe.
700 or 800 years.
About
Okay,
that,
I knew she was fairly old. Yeah.
She's getting up there.
Yeah.
She's getting up
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, her kids, you know, they get around 200. They're going through the terrible 200s.
Yeah. She's got Gumar. Gumar's her son. He doesn't look a day over 30. He's always like 30, no matter what.
Right, he never ages.
But he's like her her connection to the world, basically, because she's kind of keeps to her tea shop, and she doesn't like to deal with the ordinary folk very much, except to get money out of them and tell fortunes and stuff like that. But he's more of a connection to the world kind of stuff, and he's a little rebellious at times too, as you can tell.
Yeah.
But he often gives in to his mother and supports her. And I think it's a really complex, nice relationship. It's worked out really well. I like Bugalo a lot. She's done a lot of her.
What about Lou Brown? Can you tell us a little bit about Lou Brown?
Lou Brown. He's been known as I have some book here, Lou Brown, actually. Look at this.
Yeah.
This was years ago.
I remember that.
Oh, you remember that one? Oh, the eye creatures got at that point, the seeing eye. He was like an ordinary fellow who has supernatural adventures. And I think, again, a connection from one thing to another. Zooey, halfway through my series of 72 issues when I was a kid, he became a human being. And I will say that Lou Brown is sort of the evolution of this guy, Rudolph, who was Zooey at the time.
Oh.
Now, but I would say kind of like.
Okay.
Kind of like the same color character. He's sort of bewildered. His very first adventure, he went on a vacation. It's called Escape, and he's all bothered. And he says, my therapist said I should get away. And this skeleton shows up on the train and starts tormenting him. And only he can see the skeleton. So obviously things happen. So a lot of odd things would happen to him. And I say, well, God, he should be in therapy. So he got to seeing Dr. Young, Dr. Charles Young. You will tell me about a dream, please. He's this European gentleman. It's like Carl Jung, of course. So then Dr. Young came on. And Lou Brown, of course, you see what happens here. Lou Brown met Bugalo at one time years ago.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
And turns out he had housed this spirit of something called Avatar, an owl man. And she got Horoscuro to battle with him back and forth. Now, again, I can ramble on. The owl man goes way back to the 80s for me of doing bird-like people, because in my paintings and fantasy work. So I always did one thing fed another, and it always goes that way. And so what happened is also, if I may say, so that it got established that they were in the same city, and I call it the city of Brookston. So finally, Dr. Young knows Bugalo, and we'd have a series of the case book of Dr. Young. He would talk about people he knew in cases, and then you had Crow's Curios, which was this Mr. Alistair Crow had a shop of curious objects, and those always had stories. And he knew Bugalo because Gumar would bring in objects to get money off of them. And then Detective Kolowski, whose mother was Magda, very imperious lady, almost like a Gumar Bugalo thing going on there. She's a Polish immigrant. And then
this is amazing.
Lou Brown's neighbor, Joe Carbone. Joe Carbone was an engineer, electrical engineer, and he worked at BSI, Brookston Scientific Institute, which of course had all sorts of adventures as well, and it's a kind of a devious scientific place. And I could go on. There's lots of other characters too who were.
The amount of thought that you put into this is just amazing, Larry.
It's an amazingly complex universe. Everything ties together, and I can't believe how prolific you've been and how many comics and zines you've produced since 1973. Do you have any idea how many you've published? It's been an awful lot.
Self-published works?
Self-published, yeah.
Let's see, there's 72 issues of 72. You'd have to add them up. 72 of Tales of Fantasy. The Comet had 10. Of course, these new books, I must have 10 more there as well. I did 2 issues of Sphinx, which was my personal experiences. They were like writings of my life. 3 issues of that, actually. Mysterious Adventures.
It's gotta be hundreds.
About 100, at least 100, at least.
100, yeah.
At least, I'd say.
Definitely one of the most ambitious publishers around, and everything you publish, it totally comes from your heart and your soul. They're all totally entertaining, and you can't stop reading. And some of the stories are quite long, but once you get in there, you're hooked, and you just have to keep reading.
Should I tell you? Okay, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you about Zooey. You mentioned Zooey. Is this your oldest character?
Well, Cloud and Fog predates him. Cloud and Fog was my first character from 1 year.
You were doing comics like some of us did on lined notebook paper or just whatever, way before you ever actually started publishing.
Yes, I did. In fact, I happen to have some right here, my stack, if I can find them. Give it here. Here he is. Yes, as a matter of fact, I have here a Zooey comic from 1964. It's on Big Chief Indian paper, Tales of Fantasy.
Oh my God.
Then. Look at this. If you can see this.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Wow. The early days.
So he met the paper.
He met the Silver Witch. This is Big Chief Indian paper. If you remember that. Yeah, it's like
I think so.
Newsprint with green lines.
Newsprint with lines, right? Yeah. Oh man.
Wow, that's
and
so cool that you still have those.
I have all 72. Here's a later one. When I was 14, I actually graduated to more better quality paper without the lines. So in fact,
how was that reproduced? How did you?
Original. This is the original. These are my homemade.
Oh, those
comics.
are original.
Yes.
Okay.
It's when I made these as a kid. When I was 14.
I see
68.
Now. Okay.
And actually, I'll tell you briefly story about this. I had this on another one, and 2 boys in art class showed Mr. Sather, my art teacher, this stuff, one day. He says, Larry, how come you didn't show me this stuff? I said, it's not schoolwork. All of a sudden, I became this star artist in class, and I was sort of mediocre from what I was doing for what he wanted. But he gave me, what was really his mentorship, gave me a taste for all kinds of art. He was like, let's do painting, learn anatomy, let's do some fashion design or ceramics and stuff like this. And so by the time I graduated, I got 2 awards as high marks, and I barely graduated because my other subjects I sucked at.
Yeah, that's the way I was.
But and I just tell you briefly, this is how I feel about art. It's like, if you don't do well in art or music, well, it's just not your thing. If you don't do well in science or math, you're not working hard enough. You're lazy. Well, excuse me. When I was 15, I'm going to brag, I could put a book together with the contents and ads and text and whole design and stories that made sense. At
Yeah.
the beginning, middle, and end. You learn that in the 8th grade, how to do a short story,
Right.
characterization, all of that. And I went on to work in newspapers. I was a production guy. When I was 17, I started doing my hometown newspaper. So I had this systems. I could put things together in publications. And yet, I think about that as a kid. I say, God, I thought it was dumb because I didn't do so well in trigonometry, or calculus. You think I ever use this stuff? I'm not
no
an
use
engineer.
for it. Yeah, I know.
If you're an engineer, you do it. You're a scientist, but not everybody goes into that kind of stuff.
Right.
But and I wanted to be a teacher when I grew up, so that's what I wanted to do, and that
that's
happened
what you
in
did.
recent years, just the past 10 or 12 years. Yeah.
So you've only been
you haven't been
art
teaching
for
that
10 or
long,
12 years?
No.
Yeah, it's a recent thing since we moved here to Hyde Park, the borough of Boston. It's like law big cities that eat up the towns around them. And I got involved with our art center here and started teaching. And I did a comic book course for 5 years there, which was a lot of fun. And I wrote about it in Allen Systems magazine here. Collector's Link fanzine, if you've seen this. I think Steve has seen this one.
Yeah, I have that issue. Yeah, Larry Johnson.
Wow.
And I wrote about my
Nice
experiences
cover.
there. Thank you. I did that one. But I did that for 5 years, and then I've also done a lot of drawing, and I teach now at a retirement community there as well. And we do a lot of watercolor and drawing. And lately, I'm doing collage there. In fact, this morning, I put together this collage, which I had a lot of fun of some horses and lines and things.
Yeah.
And this is when let me ramble out of it. Because when I can't sleep at night, I think about my projects. I say, well, you're going to put some horse and put some lines this way and put some lines that way and have images overlapping. And I get up and I do it. So that's how I do this kind of thing. And
Reminds me of this.
Horseman.
Horseman, yeah.
Your most recent issue.
Yeah,
yeah.
we just reviewed that one. Yeah.
This is great. The Horseman is a wordless comic, and it's in full color. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But Horseman wanders from all these different fantasy realms from one to another. At one point he's under a goldfish bowl here. He ends up in like a nursery with a little girl and a dollhouse. Well, of course, he ends up inside the dollhouse. And but it's like a dream. It's like a dream.
Good.
And this is a character that's only been around for 3 or 4 years. You just recently came up with Horseman.
You want to hear the story behind Horseman?
Let's hear it.
Okay. I think in fact, you can see my sketchbook drawings of Horseman on my YouTube channel, which is Larry Johnson, and it has a Zooey icon. You just look for Zooey's picture, and you'll find where is it? Just look for Zooey and my name, and you can get it. But Horseman, in 2016 summer, I was going to do a course for kids at our art center. And I said, what do 10-year-old boys like? I said, I know. They say, let's do a poster for a science fiction story. You're going to make it up and all this stuff. So, and they're like, everything you're going to teach, you have to do first. So I said, okay, I got to start drawing this stuff. And I'm going to do. So I started drawing my sketch of wolfmen on horses chasing stuff in the woods or stuff. And so I started doing this whole drawings of this. And there was this creature in the woods, this dark man with antlers that was looking at them all the time. And so I went on for about 20 or 30 of these for a while. I thought, well, I'm sort of done with this. Then sort of this man in the woods evolved into Horseman. And the original Horseman was a man with a horse's head who had antlers.
Oh.
So, and I went up to 160 of those drawings until fall of the second year, 17. And I started Horseman series number 2 in my sketchbook, which is right here. Now, these drawings that I put up on Facebook and on my YouTube page start in this sketchbook.
Okay, because I see the ones on Facebook. Yeah.
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 So you see all this. So and
amazing. That's amazing work.
So I'm up to 196 on this one. I think I'll go up to at least 200.
And
you sort of
amazed me.
And what I liked about this, now get this. I had stopped doing Tales of Fantasy comic books like at the end of 15. And I was doing a little bit of Broken Bee, the Western series in the beginning, but I wanted to do something that didn't have a story. get away from the conventional plot kind of stuff. So I said, how can you do things that are not, that sort of go into a story but don't? And I started following, sort of follow themes throughout these things. I say, oh, he meets mushroom people for a while, or, or there's some industrial stuff happening in the background, or here's some alien things, or he's riding fish all the time or something, whatever. And the most disparate elements together. And how do you do it? And how do you add on someone else's influence to you? I had a friend, Rosemary. In fact, she died last year, and we did a memorial for her. And she did collages. She would do like National Geographic stuff, but she put this weird stuff together. Like, here's a sand pit and a church and the laundry line and construction guys all together. And somehow it made sense. And I go, and I'm biking along, I said, well, I'm seeing here's some construction, here's a hole in the road, here's a laundry. So she's seen things. And so Horseman was the same sort of thing. And she loved Horseman, because we would sit at the coffee shop and look at this stuff. And so how can you put disparate things together to make them almost like sense? And when you say dreamlike, that's pretty much, and what I like is, I think on your review you say, Larned, you might have said that it almost becomes a story, but then it goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
That I'm not following, okay, here's your plot, you're foreshadowing, and you got to have A, B, C, and then you got to wrap it up and tell enough to make sense. No, you don't. Life doesn't go like that. So Horseman's kind of fun. And some people are really weird. Some people weirded out by him. Oh, he's got little tight whiteys on. I said, well, you want him naked? I says, it becomes something else.
Not going to go over big.
Furthermore, you can put him on Facebook.
Yeah, right.
Facebook they're going to get after you with any nudity, believe me. Right. But so he's been a lot of fun. And what's great about him is, I think 3 people have said, they think about dialogue. What can you do for words? And I thought about this. Amazingly, I never think of words for him ever. I just say, he's going to be doing this, doing that, and there's no words whatsoever. In fact, that's when I don't sleep at night. It's like, well, Horseman will be doing this, and this stuff will be in this corner, and he'll meet this thing, and then something else will be coming after that way.
Yeah.
But it's
amazing. It's put together very well. I mean, it's amazingly a stream of consciousness, but one thing leads to another and another and another. I mean, it makes sense as you're looking along. He's in the ocean, he's in the sky, he's here.
Yeah, he's out everywhere.
But
going in.
It's stream of consciousness.
How do you
also makes sense?
How do you color your artwork?
Photoshop.
Photoshop.
I scan in my stuff.
Okay.
And I
have never mastered Photoshop.
And I'll tell you, every page in that Bugalo, it takes 5 to 6 hours or so of doing it, because it's immense work. Wow. It's more than the drawing and inking of it, believe me. Yeah. But when you do it, and you can go into effects and things, but I don't go there too much. I do some like shading. You can go into this dry media tool, which is like a brush, and I might do like some of her skin. You know how you do like some modeling a little bit like that, maybe. But also, what you have to do when you do bucket fill, the problem with that, the pixels, you get a little tiny white line around the black line where the color goes. So you got to go in there with your pen and go,
really?
You got to carefully go through and make sure it's all there. There are other programs like a vector. I don't know. Vector means, here's this computer land, where you can blow it up big and the pixels never show. It's like big or small. It can go up to billboard size and it's always good. But I'm not that way. It's like 600 DPI. Well, I could go into technical stuff, but I scan it in, and then you can you clone off your colors and things, and it's a whole process how I do that kind of stuff. But and I do it for Kablam as well. So you have to, I scan them in at 600 DPI, and I put them in at 6.25 inches wide and 9.75 tall, and then you have to get them down to 300 DPI, resize, and then you got to do LZW compression, because they're like 60 MBs, and they've got to go down to like 3 or 4 once you compress them. And what's good about compressing, they don't lose any quality. Yeah. So things when you're working in Photoshop, you blow up your work like 500 or 600%, and God, I said, why wasn't I more careful with my inking here? Christ, this is like a mess. You get fix. You can get really crazy. Fix every little line. which actually, when you get done, is really, really beautiful once you get done, but it takes a certain obsession. So I get up in the morning and I do that for a few hours.
Wow.
Obsession. I'd never have that kind of, I wouldn't be able to do that.
I wouldn't, yeah. I don't.
Beyond me. That's amazing.
Steve, we come a long way from the ditto, working on his
Yeah,
math.
definitely, yeah. Now, I got one, since you said that, I will show that this is one of your old ditto zines. This one is the Comet number 2.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, my copy's a little stained. I think there was some Scotch tape here
Looks
for
like
some
the
reason.
shadow on there.
That is the shadow.
It is the shadow.
Yeah.
It is the shadow.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Comet number 2, July 1974.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. That's
you
right.
know, Living Purple Ditto, which has faded out over the years. Yeah, but it's just, and even then, the stuff is a little. You've got some surreal stuff here.
Yeah.
This page
wow.
here, which is wordless. I'm having a hard time holding the right position, but
Hard to see that because of the ditto.
yeah, because it's faded, because it's ditto.
Yeah.
And it was a long time ago, but he was experimenting. You were already experimenting with that sort of a wordless fantasy.
At that age that you were, I've said this before, I never dreamed you could make your own comic book. I drew cartoons and little drawings and things, but I never thought of making a comic book. I didn't think that was possible, so I never did it.
You mean publishing or just doing your own homemade stuff?
Just making a comic book. I didn't think you could do that. I knew you could draw panels and that. I never did it because I didn't know what I would ever do with it. But
well, when I was
never knew you could actually print a comic book. Never knew that until I was about 50, maybe, when I discovered small press.
You're a late bloomer.
I was a late one. Yeah, I came into it late. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I'm
discovered
so proud of
self-publishing.
myself after listening to Larry. His volume of work. I did 16 pages in a year. I thought I really have done something here. I got it all done. I got it all inked. It's ready to go to the printer.
But once you get started, that's the rest of your life. You're there. It's a lifelong obsession.
Yeah.
That's it. So you can never stop now.
No.
I do lots of other art too, so it's not just.
I see your paintings are beautiful.
I know you do. The paintings.
Thank you.
and everything.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really nice. Yeah.
I like nature deal. I do that.
Yeah, go out and
the
do you
nature
paint
paintings.
right on the site or do you bring it home? A picture.
Both.
Home? Both.
I actually do a lot of on-site drawing.
Yeah.
Because we live near these woods that
Yeah.
are really great. And in fact, that's what brought us down here to Hyde Park, because I just love the woods down here.
Yeah.
Must have done 150 drawings in the woods in the past 20 some odd years. And I also take my sketchbook out to the city and just do buildings and the bridges and all sorts of other stuff I like as well. And it's amazing to me. I go talk to other artists, and I remember talking to artists who is, you do landscapes and comic books? How can you do that? They say it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, as an artist, and I just like experimenting with a lot of things, is that I'll tell you just briefly, in Boston, I've been to open studio events for like past 25 years, and I know loads and loads and loads of artists, actually probably 100 at least. And I will tell you that I could count on my one hand about the number of artists who do painting and other stuff who are into comics. They're not doing it.
Yeah.
And it's a whole separate world, I guess. And you might get artists who are painters who might be musicians, or people who do poetry and printmaking, or they might do photography and collage, something else. But I can only know just a handful that do the other stuff.
I know that there are comic books that are painted in watercolor. A lot of them. And I thought about doing that, but I've never done it. But I've sure thought about it because I do watercolors.
Here's the cover for Broken Bee, number 2, which is in watercolor.
That's a watercolor? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of covers are in watercolor. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's really nice.
I've done some of that. The colors came out a little different, but that's what.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
You try to get as close as possible.
Yeah.
They did a good job with Zooey because I told them to. I gave him the Photoshop number of that color. I want his blue and yellow and red to do well. Hang on just a second.
Okay.
I don't have my copy of Broken Bee right now, but we just reviewed it. We just reviewed number 2.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's cool. It's a science fiction fantasy adventure. It's in the Wild West. It's a Wild Western fantasy SF adventure. Fascinating stuff.
Are the hardest things in the world to draw cowboy hats?
Oh yeah.
They're murder. They are murder.
Oh, I get criticized for the cowboy hat.
Yeah.
They're floating. They're not right size. And
Oh my gosh. It is tough. Yeah.
I was cleaning somebody's house and this guy had a whole collection of them. I put them on my head and I took loads of selfies. I said, now I either got to get this sitting
it's
just
so hard
right.
to draw.
You got the swinging like this and all.
Yeah.
And you try to be consistent as you can.
Yeah.
Anyway, Broken Bee number 3, I got 1 page to finish, is about the mechanical man. This guy's up at drive riding one day. He comes across this steam-driven thing. That's a whole issue that's going to come out.
I've seen you previewed that. You had a couple of drawings there. One or two.
Yeah, I think you talked about that in the
Mechanical
issue.
Man.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that one.
Looking forward to that one.
Well, I did one of the early issues of Broken Bee was Tastes Like Chicken. It was like this guy met a T-Rex in the desert. So that was one of the debut stories. And so I must have about half a dozen stories to write still on Broken Bee. I've got loads of things happening with that. The ranch foreman, I tell you briefly. I don't want to go on too much about it, but that's one of my many projects that I'm doing, as you can tell.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say you have a few projects going, Larry.
Always. Shall I show you stuff here? This is my preview copy of Zooey number 2, which is at the printers right now, called King of the Zooeys. Because these people come and kidnap Zooey and take him into some great ritual and all. And that'll be out in a few weeks, I think, because I should be getting my copies pretty soon for that.
Wow. Okay.
As well. And that's I kind of slowed myself down a little bit.
Really?
So much all right. Pula.
Yeah,
Pula. That's why I'm doing Horseman these days, because I think he's kind of like a comfort food. You're just like, okay, just slow down and concentrate on him for a while.
Yeah.
And here's an interesting thing I thought of. Alice in Wonderland. I did these drawings of 22 drawings of Alice based on the Tenniel drawings. And I just put this is an experimental book I may print soon. And in fact, these drawings are on my YouTube channel as a slideshow as well. Right. And I thought, because when I was a little kid, my mother had an encyclopedia from the supermarket that you used to get one book a week for $1 back in the Grand Union. And I knew there was some Alice drawings in there. And of course, when you're 5 and 6, you just study these things. You pore over these things so much. And I love this stuff so much that I thought, that's really nice. I just think that the Tenniel illustrations to Mr. Carroll's works are a perfect marriage of words and pictures in the history of publishing. There's probably better stuff, but this is like up there as some of the best illustrated book, I think, in history. And so I wanted to say, what would be my color? These were color pencil things I did over the course of a couple of years. And so I just put them together and I just did the quote that went with that picture. Here's the Duchess and her ugly baby and all. And so that I may come out with. I thought I might get it before Christmas, but I figured I needed to wait on that too. So that might be a special publication. It's not a comic book, but it's a collection of art that's kind of related to it.
Sure.
That looks amazing. That looks amazing. And the artwork is true to the Lewis Carroll's original.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. I thought it had a UFO symbol. You put a UFO symbol on the front cover. I noticed that right off the bat.
You got it.
We've been involved with that group for a long. I'm not going to talk about the UFO much, although I'm the chairman, and prone to hype it from time to time. But you really, you're one of the longest lived. In fact, you were one of the first members of the UFO when I became chairman.
That's right.
72, 73. So you've been with it a long time.
Off and on,
70s. Wow.
So, and
I think I rejoined 10 years ago or so. Can I brag? I've never missed a column.
No, I can always count on it. And your columns are amazing. Sometimes they go on for 6 or 7 or 8 pages or whatever. And they're just, it's good rambling. It's good rambling. You really go in depth with your reviews of the zines and stuff. You know, you're not only a brilliant artist, but you're a brilliant writer as well. Pretty much, you're darn talented, Larry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great that you've been involved, that you've been there for so long, that you're still there. So it's amazing that that group is still here after 50 some odd years, started by Carl Gafford way back then. But we've been doing it a long time.
Well, I'm thinking maybe we ought to kind of wrap this up.
Head up. You can have me back if you like.
I could go all afternoon, but I know people have things to do and stuff like that. So
tell you what, you want me back in the future and talk about collaborations I've done with a lot of people over the years.
No, we can always have you back, Larry. You could be a regular.
Just this morning, I was just reading this strip I illustrated written by Steve Keeter called The Phoenix, which was Jim May published. It's that this guy was a bomb and he was going to blow up the
the living bomb or whatever it was. I remember that one, and you drew it.
The Phoenix goes to see President Nixon and he starts up the tape recorder.
Tape recorder.
Remember that?
Oh my God!
You added that. That wasn't in the script. You put that tape recorder in there.
Like in the Watergate days.
Right. He was taping everything. I said the script and he's talking to the president, but Larry sneaked in a little tape recorder, reel to reel, in the corner.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so we go way back in the old days. But yeah. Well, I'm glad you had me here today.
Oh, we really appreciate it, Larry. Thanks for doing it.
My pleasure. Even the technical stuff figured this out. It's like, I'm old, and this is like, Jesus, it's like awful.
I think we're all getting old, Larry.
We're all old.
I just turned 68, so.
Oh, okay. Well,
but I feel like I don't think any different than when I'm 16, for crying out loud. I still have the same interest, and Steve, you get on your bike just like I do all the time.
Yeah, I ride my bike, you know.
Yeah.
You got to keep that youthful enthusiasm. You got to keep those dreams alive. You got to keep that energy alive. You got to keep don't lose what you've always had. Don't lose it.
Right.
Keep on enjoying life.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, I'll shut this down, and we'll see everybody in the next episode. We'll put Larry's info down in the description so you can contact him. And thanks for watching.